Before we jump in, let me set the stage. Arguments today are louder, faster, and more chaotic than ever. People don't just debate, they battle. They don't just disagree, they try to overwhelm, distract, or outperform each other. And somewhere in that noise, truth becomes optional. Because the real game isn't about who's right. It's about who sounds right. But here's the thing, even the smartest sounding arguments can crumble the moment you look closely. Hidden underneath the confidence, the statistics, and the dramatic storytelling are patterns, predictable tricks that make weak logic look strong. And once you learn to see these patterns, you can never unsee them. So today we're not just listing rhetorical fallacies. We're unpacking the psychology behind them, why they fool us, why we fall for them, and how to break free from arguments that feel persuasive but fall apart under the slightest pressure. Let's take a deep breath. Let's slow down the noise. And let's start seeing arguments clearly. Have you ever been in an argument where the other person sounded incredibly confident, incredibly persuasive, and yet somehow incredibly wrong? Maybe they threw in a few facts. Maybe they raised their voice. Maybe they even made you doubt yourself. But deep down, you knew something wasn't right. Chances are they weren't actually winning the argument. They were just using rhetorical fallacies. And here's the twist, we all use them often without noticing. So today, I'm going to explain every major rhetorical fallacy in a way that sticks with you so you can spot them instantly the next time someone tries to outsmart you, or the next time you accidentally outsmart yourself. Before we start listing fallacies like we're reading from a dusty logic textbook, let's answer the big question, what even is a rhetorical fallacy? The easiest way to think about it is this. A fallacy is like a beautifully wrapped gift box. It looks impressive, it feels convincing, but when you open it, there's nothing inside. Or worse, the thing inside has nothing to do with what you were actually talking about. Fallacies sound correct, but they break the rules of logic. They give you the feeling of understanding instead of actual understanding. And the scary part, they still work. Even on intelligent people. Even on you and me. So let's shine a flashlight into these empty boxes and see what's really going on. Let's start with ad hominem, the classic attack, the person, not the idea. It's the argumentative equivalent of refusing to listen to a weather forecast because you think the meteorologist's haircut is terrible. Instead of addressing the argument, you attack the speaker. You say things like, you can't trust her opinion about finances, she's only 22, or he disagrees with me. Therefore, he must be lazy, corrupted, or secretly evil. Ad hominem works because humans judge messengers instinctively. But the truth is simple. A bad person can make a good argument, and a good person can make a bad one. The messenger is not the message. Next up is appeal to emotion, which is exactly what it sounds like using feelings instead of facts. Politicians love this one. Marketers worship it. Because logic is slow and takes effort, but emotions. Emotions hit instantly. An argument might say, do this or you'll be unsafe. Or if you don't buy this product, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. Suddenly, you're not making decisions your fear is, or your guilt, or your sense of belonging. The problem isn't that emotions are wrong. Emotions just aren't evidence. Feeling scared doesn't make the claim true. Feeling inspired doesn't make it accurate. Emotion is a spotlight. It highlights things, but it doesn't prove anything. Now let's talk about the straw man fallacy. Imagine you're arguing with someone, and halfway through the conversation, you realize they're not responding to what you actually said. They're responding to a simplified, exaggerated, or distorted version of your idea. It's like saying, maybe we should regulate technology more, and hearing in response. Wow, so you want us all to live in caves again? They aren't fighting your argument. They're fighting a scarecrow version of it. A straw man is easy to defeat because it was never real in the first place. The real argument remains untouched. Speaking of distortions, let's move to the slippery slope fallacy. This one imagines that a single small step will automatically lead to a catastrophic chain reaction. If we allow students to use calculators, they'll stop thinking. If they stop thinking they'll fail school, if they fail school, society collapses. That escalated quickly. Sure, some actions can lead to real consequences, but a slippery slope fallacy skips all the actual reasoning. It just slides from point A to point Z without showing any steps in between. Not every slope is slippery. Sometimes it's just a hill. Now let's examine false cause, sometimes called post hoc. This fallacy happens when we assume that because one thing happened before another, the first thing must have caused the second. It's the classic "I wore my lucky socks and my team won. Therefore, the socks worked." Or "I drank ginger tea and my headache disappeared, so the tea is a miracle cure." Maybe it helped. Maybe it didn't. The important point is that correlation does not equal causation. Two things happening near each other does not automatically mean one created the other. The human brain loves patterns, even when they're imaginary. Next is cherry-picking the buffet-style fallacy. It's when someone selectively chooses only the evidence that supports their argument, while conveniently ignoring everything that doesn't. Imagine a restaurant with 100 customer reviews. 90 of them say the food is awful. 10 say it's great. Cherry-picking is when someone proudly holds up those 10 positive reviews as if they tell the full story. It's not lying. It's something more subtle, selective truth. But a half-truth is still misleading. Evidence is most meaningful when you include all of it, not just the tasty parts. Now let's visit the bandwagon fallacy, also known as appeal to popularity. This is the belief that if many people do something, it must be correct, safe, or wise. But popularity is not proof. Millions of people once believed the Earth was flat. Billions follow trends that turn out to be meaningless. Popularity measures how many people agree. It does not measure whether they're right. Sometimes the crowd is correct. Sometimes the crowd is spectacularly wrong. Truth doesn't win by majority vote. One of the sneakiest fallacies is the false dichotomy or false dilemma. This is when someone tries to force you into choosing between only two options, even though reality offers many more. It's the classic, "You're either with us or against us," or either success or failure, or either you agree with my opinion or you're ignorant. Real life is rarely that binary. There are shades, gradients, perspectives, compromises, and alternatives. False dichotomies trap you in a tight box. But the box only exists because someone drew it. Now let's look at hasty generalization, which is what happens when someone draws a huge conclusion from tiny evidence. You meet one rude tourist from a country and suddenly declare, "People from that country are rude." You try one dish you don't like and decide the entire cuisine is terrible. One personal anecdote becomes a sweeping universal truth. Human brains are pattern-making machines. But not every single experience deserves to become a rule. Sometimes the sample size is just too small to mean anything. Next comes circular reasoning, also known as begging the question. This happens when the conclusion is simply a restatement of the premise. It's like saying, "This policy is good because it's effective." And it's effective because it's good. Nothing new is added. No actual evidence appears. The argument walks in a perfect circle, returning to the same point it started from. It feels like movement, but it's not. It's a merry-go-round of logic. Now we reach appeal to authority, another widely misunderstood fallacy. This happens when someone argues that something must be true simply because a respected person or institution says so. But experts can be wrong. Leaders can be biased. Popular influencers can be uninformed. Appealing to authority can be valid if the authority is truly knowledgeable in that specific area, but it becomes a fallacy when the argument relies on the prestige of the person, rather than the strength of the evidence. A claim isn't true because someone powerful said it. A claim is true if it actually lines up with reality. Let's move to the appeal to tradition. This one says, "We've always done it this way, therefore it's the best way." But history is full of things we used to do that were terrible ideas. People used to believe washing hands was unnecessary. They used to think bleeding patients cured diseases. They used to think education was only for certain groups. The fact that something has been done for a long time doesn't make it correct. Tradition is not truth. It's just habit with seniority. On the opposite side, we have the appeal to novelty, the belief that something is better simply because it's new. The newest gadget, the newest system, the newest trend. But new things can be brilliant or terrible. Innovation isn't automatically improvement. Being new gives you freshness, not credibility. Another fallacy worth recognizing is the red herring. This is when someone changes the subject to distract from the real issue. It's like arguing about climate policy, and someone suddenly says, "But what about the littering problem at parks?" It sounds related. It feels adjacent, but it pulls the conversation away from the core topic. Red herrings don't solve arguments, they just change the map. Next is the fallacy of composition. This is when someone assumes that what is true for individual parts must also be true for the whole. For example, every player on a basketball team is great, therefore the team must be unstoppable. But individual talent doesn't guarantee collective success. A group is not simply the sum of its parts. Sometimes the parts don't fit together. And the opposite mistake is the fallacy of division, assuming that what is true of the whole must be true of each individual part. Saying a company is successful, therefore every employee must be brilliant. Or a country is wealthy, therefore every citizen must be thriving. General truths don't automatically transfer downward. Another mind-bending fallacy is the no true Scotsman fallacy. This one happens when someone protects a generalization just by redefining the terms. For example, no Scotsman puts sugar on his porridge. Someone says, "I know a Scotsman who does." And the reply becomes, well, no true Scotsman would do that. The definition shifts to avoid evidence. It's moving the goalposts mid-conversation, so the claim remains unfalsifiable. Next is the moral high ground fallacy, where someone assumes they are correct simply because they believe their intentions are pure. But morality and accuracy are separate things. You can mean well and still be wrong. Having good intentions doesn't transform bad logic into good reasoning. Now let's look at appeal to ignorance. This happens when someone argues that something must be true because it hasn't been proven false, or that it must be false because it hasn't been proven true. But lack of evidence is not evidence of anything. If we don't know, then we don't know. And that's okay. Ignorance is an invitation to investigate, not a conclusion to jump into. The next fallacy is the Texas sharpshooter fallacy. It's named after a story of a man who shot randomly at a barn wall, then painted a bullseye around whatever cluster of bullet holes looked the best, pretending he intended it all along. People do this with data too. They find clusters after the fact, then create a narrative that makes them look meaningful. But seeing patterns after they appear isn't the same as predicting them. It's storytelling disguised as analysis. Another powerful fallacy is the appeal to nature. This claims that something is good because it's natural and bad because it's artificial. But nature is full of wonderful things and full of deadly things. Apples are natural. Poisonous mushrooms are natural. Antibiotics are artificial, and they save millions of lives. Nature is not a moral compass. It's just reality mixed with everything. Finally, let's talk about the fallacy, one of the most ironic of all. This is when someone assumes that if an argument contains a fallacy, the conclusion must be wrong. But a bad argument for a true conclusion is still possible. If someone says gravity exists because apples fall down since forever, it's a terrible argument, but gravity still exists. The conclusion can be correct, even if the reasoning used to support it is horribly flawed. Spotting a fallacy doesn't automatically disprove a point. It just means the reasoning is weak. Now that we've seen all these fallacies, what do we do with this knowledge? The answer isn't to walk around correcting everyone, or to turn conversations into logic police inspections. The point is awareness. Fallacies aren't signs of stupidity. They're signs of human thinking. Every fallacy exists because the human brain takes shortcuts. Logical shortcuts, emotional shortcuts, social shortcuts. Fallacies feel good because they're fast. But understanding them gives you a superpower, the ability to slow down and notice when an argument sounds good but feels wrong. The next time someone says something that seems convincing, pause and ask yourself, are they presenting evidence or emotions? Are they addressing your point or a straw man? Are they showing the full picture or cherry-picking the parts that help them? Are they giving you logic or just confidence? Most importantly, are you doing any of these fallacies yourself? Because recognizing fallacies in others is easy. Recognizing them in yourself is where the real growth happens. So now you have the toolkit. You've seen all the rhetorical traps, the shortcuts, the illusions, the tricks our brains accidentally play. And once you know what these fallacies look like, you can't unsee them. They show up in debates, in news and advertising, in arguments with loved ones, and in the little voice inside your head. But knowledge is clarity, and clarity is freedom. If you want deeper episodes explaining each fallacy with more examples, stories, and breakdowns, just let me know. There's a whole universe of human thinking waiting to be explained. So now you know the tricks, the shortcuts, traps, illusions, and logical detours that shape the way people argue. And whether you're debating online, making decisions at work, or simply trying to think more clearly in your everyday life, this knowledge is your shield. Fallacies aren't rare, they're everywhere. They show up in marketing, politics, social media, casual conversations, and even in your own mind. But once you recognize them, you take back control. You stop being persuaded by confidence, by emotion, by false certainty. You start demanding real reasons, real evidence, real logic. And that's the whole point. Not to win every argument, but to understand how arguments work. If you want a deeper breakdown of any fallacy, or if you want more videos that explore the hidden mechanics of thinking persuasion and human reasoning, feel free to ask. There's always more beneath the surface. Thanks for watching, and remember, clear thinking isn't a talent. It's a habit, one that starts with paying attention.